Welcome, budding radicals and curious reactionaries. I am your host, Anthony Fama, and this is the show where we delve into weird, crazy topics that your mom doesn't want you to talk about. And we've got Gren with us here today. Actually, the camera's not flipped like it should be. Let me flip that camera. All right.
You said you had it all taken care of.
I said I did. So, gonna do some options. That's the wrong way to flip it. There we go. And we're flipped appropriately. We're now flipped appropriately. Hooray. All right. So, say hi, Gren.
Hi, Gren.
All right. We did the bit. We did the bit that we're supposed to do. Let me get back to over here. Anyway, consistency, job number one. Thank you guys for joining us again. Gonna do the marketing thing. Make sure you like, subscribe, get the live updates. There's a bell thing on YouTube, Facebook. Subscribe for live updates if you want to know when we're going live. Welcome. Let's start with our weekly updates. Start always with a personal check-in. Because anarchism is about building community, and you got to talk to each other about your lives and stuff like that. So, Gren, what's been going on with you this week?
Somebody hit my car.
Oh, fuck, that's right, huh?
No, I wasn't driving at the
That's
moment.
good.
Pauline was driving.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was dumb, but everything, like, she was fine. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
It just, the car did exactly what it was supposed to, and, you know, and
yeah, but
the outside of it came
pretty
apart.
good, right?
But
The whole rear panel completely
yeah,
fucked?
the whole outer rear passenger door, like outside of the door,
Yeah.
peeled off like tinfoil.
Oh, God.
But the cool thing is, like, it revealed, like, there's this skeleton underneath that I didn't actually know that cars still kind of had that looked like kind of like a roll cage.
Really?
It's like, yeah, it looks pretty hardcore. It's like, wow, no wonder these things are so safe.
So now, have you
Hondas.
considered what I usually do and just cheaply fixing anything mechanically wrong and just taking the check and like, oh, I have investment money now. What shall I invest in?
Well, no, it's
I always take the
fine.
check. I always take the check.
You know, it definitely, I considered it for a minute. It was like, well, maybe I could take the check and then get my
Take the check.
kind of get it fixed on the own. But it's like, nah, I'm just gonna get it. I'm gonna get it fixed because then the car's optimal, back to optimal, which is fine. I'm happy with that.
Optimal as far as like what kind of value you're gonna get out of it.
Oh, I'm not
but-
worried about resale. I just wanted to keep on going. This thing,
Yeah.
I just
Then
kicked
don't fuck
over
your door.
100,000 miles on it, so.
I say use zombie like some kind of like door solution and just take the check. That's my personal anarchism. Always take the check.
No, because it does not have good sound ceiling now for you know, listening to music, so that's just
Yeah.
not going to work for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. All right. Do the proper thing. But yeah, man, that fucking sucks.
Yeah. It's a pain in the butt, but as
Yeah.
long as I've lived out here, I'm surprised it hasn't happened
Yeah.
sooner.
Yeah.
You know, some
Well-
old lady in Scottsdale just running into me.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Paul Ann, if you're watching, but it makes more sense that it would happen to Paul Ann than like someone who's way more paranoid like you or I. Fool me once.
No, how she got hit, anybody would have been hit.
Yeah.
It
Someone
was
ran
like,
a red.
Yeah, you know,
Oh.
the person plowed, like, totally barreled through the yield, actually, on a roundabout.
Oh.
Which, yeah, as me and Pauline have gone over many times, Americans don't understand roundabouts for the most part. Especially
Oh.
Scottsdale folks.
What's this yelled sign mean? Yeah, that's fucking shitty. Your school's going good though, right?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, almost finished up with this semester and getting real excited for big stuff to do next
Yeah.
semester.
Oh, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, good things. Always
Yeah.
good to end on positive notes.
Yeah.
My personal update this week, I've just been working a lot. I've been working and putting up Christmas lights a lot. So I'm pretty exhausted on a day-to-day basis, especially going like 9-10 hours a day and
Getting your
6
workout
days.
though.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a paid workout for sure. Especially like I have like a big tool belt I put on. I always like to carry all the tools I'll need or someone else might need on the job. And so yeah, that's been going good, and I'm just kind of drilling into my head like this is all new apartment money, new apartment money, new apartment money, because like, and as we'll talk later about in the show, like having mental health issues and like a hostile living situation is like fucking maddening, and to like, oh, I got out of one just to get back into another, that's kind of the car wreck of my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I still got good things. I bought Zelda.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking Zelda is great. You're a gamer.
Yeah.
And you remember the old Dynasty Warriors on PlayStation?
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Oh my god, like I loved it because it was like Chinese mythology of like the dynasties.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, my even one I like more is the Samurai Warriors lines.
Oh, I never got to really play that one. That was PlayStation 2, right?
I think they had that started coming out on PlayStation 2.
Yeah, because I skipped PlayStation 2 and went to GameCube. That's when I became a Nintendo boy.
Yeah, and then I get extra nerdy with the strategy side of it and enjoy the Empires versions of those.
I didn't play any of those. I just played the old school ones where they didn't look too great and the combo systems were kind of sloppy.
You just smash the button.
Yeah, right.
And point. You just try to make sure you're pointing the right direction when your big combo goes off.
Yeah, right. I hit it 5 times. Let's go.
Yeah.
But fucking the Zelda game, man, it's exactly like Dynasty Warriors with Zelda.
Yeah.
And in the Breath of the Wild storyline, and it's 100 years before. It's the story of the first great calamity and assembling the ancient. I don't remember their names now.
No.
The ancient machines. They're the big beasts.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have Switch, so I'm probably Breath of the Wild. So,
Yeah.
But I've kind of watched it online enough that I know the basics of it.
So once I'm gonna, after I get a new apartment, I'm gonna get myself a Christmas present. I'm gonna get my sis proper Switch. So if you want to get my Switch Lite,
Perhaps.
That's been fun. So if you're a gamer, definitely like if you need to indulge yourself because life is hard and we deserve little gifts now and then for ourselves, fucking definitely Hyrule Warriors is a fun play. The control scheme is like just smooth as shit. A really good intricate combo system. Intricate and like I have 2 buttons and like it's good, sensitive to timing. It's a good control scheme. You can point yourself in the right direction a lot, and the combos are fucking. Some of them are baller. And especially the female characters are kind of some of the strongest ones, which is always like, yay!
Yeah.
So that's been kind of my indulgence. We're gonna start a new weekly segment, cultural programming, because one of the things I've been indulging in is the new Animaniacs. And for the most part, like, I think it's great political satire. There's this one episode of Pinky and the Brain where Brain decides that it's like in the 1950s and like he's given to a gift by a Lockheed Martin lobbyist, right? And that's where he first meets Pinky, I guess. So anyway, they make a joke about like, oh, well, I can't take a bribe or I can't take gifts from lobbyists. Right, and that's a good laugh. And then so Brain gets it into his head. He's going to like take the senator's identity and like just blackmail everyone out of Congress. And so he builds like a robot body. He's already got this all planned out apparently, and he has a robot body and his big old robot body and tiny mouse head sticking out. So he proceeds to blackmail all of Congress out of Congress, and Pinky starts being like, I don't know about this, Brain. Like I don't feel good telling lies to people. And Brain has this great line where he says, well, Pinky, lies are just facts that haven't been repeated enough yet. And you'll be very happy to learn that because lies are just facts that haven't been repeated enough yet. And then he gives like a look to the camera, and like Pinky turns around and is like, oh, that's great, you know. But then they do this anti-Russian episode that really just kind of irked me, because it really heavily relied on these like old Soviet tropes that just don't fucking correlate anymore. You know, I don't know if people remember this, but like, yeah, Putin was in the KGB and all that. And he was like the head of the KGB, but Russia is the capitalist freedom land that we built it to be. Russia is exactly what we made it to be with our intervention in Russia. You know, all of our oligarchs flooding to Russia, like Donald Trump, and like so many others, even ones on the left, quote unquote, because they're not the left, and I have to keep explaining that to people. But you know, they're not communist. They're not. It's not. No one's going to gulags. Like, it's just not the same thing.
No.
And it's really disturbing, like how such culturally liberally progressive people, are taken by these authoritarian tropes, and propaganda, because like this is like all of the media that we consume, be it commercials, be it theater, music, television, movies. It's all cultural programming. That's like where we get our heroes from. It's where many of us who don't have like a wide social net, or family units to have set our examples for us, well, we use this media, these stories, as our guides. So it's really important that we look at media from an ideological perspective. So as an anarchist, you know, someone who's keenly critical of power structures and how they affect economy, how they affect society as a whole, in down to the macro levels of how we think about ourselves and how we think about our neighbors and our friends and treat each other. The deep philosophical and spiritual aspects of anarchism, which we'll delve into a little bit later when we start talking about mental health. But when we look at a cartoon, especially, that has these authoritarian undertones, because they're just promoting xenophobia, you know, because yes, Russia is not a bastion of freedom by any means. It is an authoritarian playground for oligarchs, but so is America. And it is the same liberal compromise that capitalism made with feudal oligarchs and aristocrats back in the original capitalist uprisings and revolutions. So, and I'm not. If you have anything to add, Gren,
Well, I can't add too much on it because I haven't seen that one. I wish I had already, so
Yeah.
I could really create a discussion on this. But I mean, in general, yeah, we still use the same shorthand with talking about Russia as we always have for the last 50 years. Like we
Yeah.
don't change it too much, even though, yeah, as you say, basically it's very much the same.
It's downright racist.
it's a little less hidden. Like,
Just
or
because
Russia
Russian people are
today.
also white doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
not racist to have these xenophobic, reductive cultural tropes of
Well,
Russians.
I almost feel like it's more of a thing of just we're saying, like, our cartoon there, or this instance is perhaps saying that, oh, that's this other that is a bad thing, and
Yeah.
something that we are against, and it's like, yeah, but it's almost the same as us.
It's still nationalism.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
They're a little more blatant with their authoritarian.
Mm-hmm.
We hide it. Well, I mean, not so much the last 4 years, but previously we would hide it a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's still all the same underlying problems that we have in this country that Russia has over there.
Yeah.
I mean, we also have gulags where we
Yeah.
put brown people and give them hysterectomies. And like we have to really like I'm not advocating cancel culture. By no means should we cancel Animaniacs because I think the rest of the cartoon is great. But
It's just an analysis of,
Yeah.
where is this coming from, and maybe
and is this
where
a
it's
healthy thing?
written. And I haven't seen it, so maybe in my watching of it, I'll see a little more critique of that, like a little
Yeah.
more of a wink and a nudge, but maybe you're not picking up on.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not there.
Yeah,
I mean,
but so many times in our media as a whole,
oh yeah, media as a whole right now is not.
it's all boiling down to the same conclusions.
Right.
About a feared other,
Yeah.
outside other, which is nationalism, and that's a thing that prevents us from recognizing that we have all the same struggle, which is why we're critical and sensitive to these kind of like, what essentially amount to microaggressions. Like if we're gonna not invent a new word, and just poorly use another, these little small transactions in our media and in our culture that represent this larger poison. I mean, that's really all I have to say on that, unless you have any other points, Gren.
I can't add on too much more to that.
Yeah. Let's move on to an even greater threat with This Week in Protest, where we've been having fucking the right wing pulling beer hall putches. This is where it starts. The fascists in Germany didn't start with like a big successful campaign. They started with a lot of failures that emboldened them, which is what's happening right now all across the country. I believe, I'm not sure if we gave this update last Sunday, but last week in DC, right-wingers literally formed mobs and were hunting down Antifa and fucking stabbing people. One reporter got stabbed in the ear. There was another activist who got interviewed and reported being stabbed in the chest, and luckily he has the same styled body armor that I do, where we take the airsoft foam that's like 2.5 inches thick and very heavy set foam, so the knife just stuck inside the foam and like was like cartoon like, and then the guy just pulled it out. And but like I did share a video on the Facebook through my personal page where a woman was being fucking like chased the fuck down and like tackled by people and beaten, and like one sole cop was like trying to like get these people away from her and let her get some safety. Meanwhile, cops all the rest of the place are just watching this happen and letting it happen. So you cannot rest during a Joe Biden administration. Like, none of us get to go back to sleep and believe democracy is saved, because it is dearly, dearly not. The people representing what is supposed to be the left wing in American politics are extremely right wing, with their nationalism, with their xenophobia, with their out and out authoritarianism. And let's be clear, what we determine authoritarianism as anarchists. Something that we determine as authoritarian is anyone who emphasizes the notion that some people are more fit to lead and make decisions than others. Representative democracy is an aversion to us because some people just make decisions and other people just follow them. I don't want to live in a house with a person that just makes all the decisions that I have to follow. As someone who's has mental health issues, that's an extremely toxic environment for me. Because, as we'll discuss later, like, I've just had a history of like just needing to have a hand and like a say in what I do and knowing why I'm doing it. But we'll talk about that later. So witnessing these consistent, and some of these marches are being organized and definitely attended. All of them are definitely being attended by outright Nazis, people who are known to incite and call for violence and manipulate people through groups like the Proud Boys. And your friends are being slowly manipulated by these people. Like someone who I've always respected, and while he lived in this music scene here in Phoenix and was hanging out with all of us, he was a very culturally progressive person and still is. But he buys into this idea that Antifa is just as authoritarian and fascist as the actual fascists, because liberals are also repeating that line. Conservative liberals in the Democratic Party. There goes the cloud. Technical difficulties. We didn't lose any audio, thankfully.
No, good.
Yeah. That's why you tape down cables, so you don't pull things out. But anyway, yeah, they're escalating, guys, and we need to start being more vigilant, especially somewhere here like Phoenix, where there's no action going on because people are being intimidated by the police, by these huge right-wing groups. Let me remind you, there was 1,000 of them trying to stop or just manipulate the vote counting by just being intimidating outside of the voting centers. That's how Gore lost, by an illegal steal of the election.
Oh, I mean, that I think had potentially more to do with Jeb Bush being governor of...
No, because there was the same kind of intimidation tactics in Ohio. And it wasn't just one state that was intimidated and manipulated into tossing out a lot of votes.
Yeah, but I think that goes up for those. I don't think that was so much intimidation as
there was these same kind of attempts to gather people outside these voter centers in Ohio, in Florida. These things were organized by what's the Roger, funny glasses hat guy, Roger Stone. I think Roger Stone. I believe. I could be mistaken about that. If you know better in the comments, please just correct me. But no, like these same kind of intimidation campaigns were launched and effective in manipulating vote counts in 2000. I don't think they're going to work this time. I'm going to be paranoid and keep thinking about the right-wing perspective of how it could play out.
Yeah, so you'll give that side, and I'll keep on arguing that I don't think anything's going to change because the mainstream media has made its decision, and
Yeah.
very vocally.
Well, I definitely think the oligarchs want Trump out. They want 4 years of quiet and seeming calm before the real storm hits. Because, surprise, no one's going to get you out of this. Hiding the branding.
Oh, that's what you're doing.
But, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this week in protest. Not a whole lot of... Guatemala. It's a quick trip on Guatemala. Guatemala fucking rose up and lit their Congress on fire.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, I've on my personal Facebook. I got to start doing all this stuff on the official. We got to buy one of those like management apps so we can do it to all the things. Because we should start an Instagram. So we're gonna do a housing update because I had a bit of an experience today saving a houseless guy from Montana named Zach from getting cop hassle. He was actually, him and his friend were assaulted on a street corner. I was driving to pick up tobacco at my place down in Tempe, and I'm on the corner of the 60 and rural, and I'm just waiting behind this SUV with a trailer on it, and I see these two guys, and this guy ends up being Zach. He's like wearing all black and it's got some red and white on it. I'm like, oh, these guys kind of look like Nazis. I don't know. They could be like chill, but like, you know, colors matter. And unfortunately,
Aren't
some
you wearing
places...
the same colors?
Exactly. So I don't really know. I had this hood. I was wearing a hoodie, so I've learned not to wear like this shirt out in public and like blazing it out because weird things tend to fucking happen when I wear this shirt. I also tend to act nicer and be braver. So it looks like his friend goes up to this SUV, and spanging for change, right? And you know, he starts walking away, and then someone gets out the passenger side with a fucking bat and starts chasing after this guy, and the fucking SUV with the trailer takes off. You know, so I just fucking go into go mode apparently, and fucking peel out and start not going after the van, but like the SUV, but like yeah, I just park the nearest place I can to like just get an eye on this, because if there's violence, I kind of was like, I'm gonna at least film, so like this, if there's like a problem, there's like some kind of evidence, you know, like this person committed an act of violence against these people. I didn't have any kind of like weapon or self-defense. I just kind of fucking went. Luckily for me, as a small and vulnerable person, by the time I did find a parking spot, the attacker was already on his way out. And so I wasn't gonna just get out and like kind of mingle with him in any separate like individual spot. So I pulled out and then got my car over to the Denny's parking lot, got out there, and by that time the guy that got attacked, he was running his way onto a free orbit bus, and he bailed it out of there. So like I see Zach is still on the corner, so I, you know, kind of get myself over there and, you know, make sure he's okay. Make sure no one's hurt, like he doesn't need anything. So I go up and say, hey man, like I just saw what happened with the guy with the fucking bat, and like I just want to make sure everything's cool over here and you're okay. And he's like, oh yeah, man, like it's cool, like I'm good, like I'm not hurt. And he kind of gives me the lowdown on what actually happened, which is not my place to tell. But it was less of a random act of violence. Um, but so anyway, like he lets me know, like he just got into town. He's from Montana, and I'm like, all right, well, like if you're cool, man, here's $5. Like be safe out there. I kind of give him the lowdown on like what to expect in Phoenix. And so I start walking away, and he's still doing his thing. And then as I cross the street, a fucking cop pulls on and flashes the cherries and berries. And so I'm like, oh, I perk up. And they roll down the window and talk to him for a second, and then a female officer gets out and starts talking to him, and I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna leave just yet. And I walk back over, and get my stern but white and polite act going, and basically start speaking on his behalf. Like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I was a witness to this. I saw the whole event take place. And they were like, at first they thought I was like another houseless person, and like we were fighting over a corner. I'm like, no, I'm on my way to running errands. I was driving by. I was behind the vehicle that like the attacker was in. Like I was just sitting there and I saw him. It looked like he was going up for change. He starts walking away, and then this guy comes out of the passenger side with a bat, starts chasing after him. SUV takes off. Basically, give her the whole rundown, and she's like, okay. So then she informs him that technically it's illegal for him to be asking for change. It's a trespassing. It's ADOT owned sidewalk. So he can't be asking for change, and normally we don't kind of give you guys a problem for this, but like if there's like an incident, then like we have to make sure like we get you out of here. And so at that point I'm like, I jump in, I'm like, hey, if he needs to go somewhere, I'll take him where he needs to go. And she perks the fuck up when she realizes like someone's willing to make it their problem. So and he lets me know, like, if you could just take me to a homeless shelter, that would be fucking great. Like, I don't know where I am here. So I'm like, all right, great, bingo bango. Like, I'll get him to a shelter, and you guys are good. And, they take off. And so we kind of go back to the van, and so he's, got to get his bag, but then I could keep seeing cops circling. So I'm like, hey, man, probably not safe for me to go with you to get your bag. It's hidden in the bushes over there. And it looks like there's still cops circling. So, like, let me go run my errand, and I'll meet you back here in 15, 20 minutes. You, like, kind of, like, give it some cool time, get your shit, and then I'll meet you back here. I do my thing, come back. He's there. So anyway, like, it takes me about an hour to find him a place to hopefully sleep for night, and it's probably not the best place. Cass on 12th Avenue, if you need to suggest that to anyone in dire need. Yeah, so, and I've been witnessing the houselessness problem just explode here in downtown Phoenix, and I was like, really like, hey, Zach, are you sure you want me to take you into the belly of the beast? Like, I know there's services down there, but like, it's flooded down there. And I let him know like how cold it gets at night, and like I see so many people with just sheets. So to this end, and now that I know where one of the main spots are, we're going to be starting to do an outreach, advocacy, and donation program. And we're going to start with warm coats, socks, and COVID masks. If you can donate those, we're going to find a drop spot within hopefully the next week, where you can just, like the Salvation Army, we'll have a big cardboard box for you to donate what you can. If you have warm coats you don't use, heavy blankets, or socks, if you can buy new socks, or packages of COVID masks, so we can, start going to this shelter and, helping people not fucking have a miserable time during this. So that's about it for our weekly updates. And so we're going to take a little break like we usually do. And when we come back, we're going to talk about anarchism and mental health. And, possibly like us questioning and exploring how having this set of ideals and this language of critique and analysis has guided us in how we've approached our mental health. As I'm diagnosed bipolar. Gren is also diagnosed. And so, yeah, we're going to go into that in some detail. So stick around. Thank you guys for hanging out with us again, as always. Make sure you like, subscribe, and all the other things you do on the things you do. And sign up for updates, live updates, if you want to be made aware and given reminders of when we're doing the live show. And so, yeah, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you. You're being cute. What? What? I don't know what. I don't know what's wrong. You want to go outside? it's just your butt. You're being cute. What? What? I don't know what. I don't know what's wrong. You want to go outside? Welcome back, budding radicals and curious reactionaries. Thank you for hanging out with us again, as always. And we've still got Gren hanging out. Say hi, Gren.
Hi, Gren.
And so, our long topic for today is anarchism and mental health. And we kind of stumbled on this topic last week during our writers' meeting over the week, because we actually do attempt to write this show. It ends up just being loose discussions, and we kind of stumble on things, which is why I favor a loose discussion format. But what we like to dive into these kind of things is, like, in a more personal nature, which is how I don't even remember how we got to the subject or on the topic.
Well, I think it was something about that we were talking about our bipolar issues and somehow got into that. And then one of us brought up just a question of kind of how anarchism plays into that.
Yeah.
And, I think we just kind of went off from there.
Yeah, because I definitely I see punk rock as one of those things that like saved my life. And the things I learned from it, which, for me, it's where I really learned and was instigated into like really actually looking into anarchism, and reading about like the theory and the history of it. And how it's not so much rah, 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 let me do whatever I want, and more rah, 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 why can't we all just communicate and do this together without having some guy tell us what to do all the time? And, it all came at a time like I've lost count of how many nervous breakdowns I've had. At least 3 major big ones where like I literally did like, oh yeah, like you're not in reality. You for a period of time thought you were Jesus, so you didn't kill yourself. But I mean, even then, I think like the way I processed a delusion like that, because of having this dedication to encouraging other people and finding a way for myself to find self-determination through free expression and free association, where like I can identify and build my identity on what I want rather than having to fit to a pre-subscribed role that I didn't necessarily agree to. You know, like that idea of like, well, I'm a blacksmith. Your grandfather was a blacksmith. His grandfather before him was a blacksmith. So you henceforth will be a fucking blacksmith, and your kid's gonna be a blacksmith, and his kid's gonna be a blacksmith. Get fucking used to it. Yeah, I went a little deep on my anger issues there. But so like where did your like identity as like, because you didn't always associate as an anarchist.
Well, I don't know. I think I've always been kind of searching for that, and many times I've come to that, like seeing the various things that I was being that were portrayed as anarchism, like because there's a lot of varieties there, and but that those things, like I understood some of the core of that, and the core meaning, and that was very identifiable.
Yeah, and to harken back real quick to our new segment, social programming, or cultural programming, social, cultural. Well, we'll figure it out when we get a graphics person. But anyway, you know, there are some actual positive and correct representations of like anarchist thought. Like when I watched V for Vendetta the first time in theaters, like as I saw that movie in theaters, because I knew a little bit about the comic book. And in the comic book, he's definitely like more of an insane chaos anarchist. But the Wachowskis put some things in there that actually did. One thing they did put in is they put in a quote from Emma Goldman, which I actually like. I heard it in the theater, and I actually shouted out, "That's Emma Goldman! That's Emma Goldman!" Because I was like with a girl that like knew me. Like this is when I was like a 20-year-old, like 18, 19-year-old anarchist when that movie came out. You know, I cried when they blew up the Parliament building and everyone in the theater cheered. I was like, I never thought I'd be in a spot where like they were blowing up a government building and like everyone cheered, and it's not like an Independence Day type thing, like, and especially that movie kind of like predicted exactly what would happen and is going to happen. Going back to the beer hall putsch. If we don't wise up. But so yeah, like when I had that like real burgeoning identity, and you know, like, so I was diagnosed very young, like with at first what's called oppositional defiance disorder, which is like a precursor to what they prescribe ADHD and speed for. And which is basically like I'm a natural born anarchist. He just like, this kid just has to be a pain in the ass and question authority all the fucking time. Like he can't stop calling bullshit on anything. Shut him fuck up. Speed, right? And then, you know, in my teens, after I moved to Arizona, like extreme clinical depression, and that's really like, and I think in a way, the depression, because it made me super critical about everything, when I'm just looking at the negatives all the time, because my brain is just kind of hardwired to do that because it senses danger all the time, and led me to first start calling bullshit, and then just kind of naturally led me to those, because I didn't like the sound of punk rock at all. When I was like first introduced to, apparently the first punk band I ever like got into was the Dead Milkmen. When I was like 11, I got one of their tapes from the library, but you know, it ended up being Operation Ivy, that finally got me in. Well, I mean, always Green Day, of course. Yeah, Green Day was like that first foray as a kid. So like that spirit of like, shaking things up. Um, I don't know, like I never thought of any of these things they labeled me with as curses until they gave me fucking schizophrenia. Specifically schizoaffective disorder. It was like, oh, he gets so stressed out and depressed that he just goes schizophrenic for a little while. But I didn't have enough like hallucinati stuff happen for that to really, really fit until like someone like labeled like, hey, it's not OCD like Monk on that TV show. It's like even just obsessive thinking about stuff. If you just can't stop thinking about like things that you don't want to keep thinking about, that's part of it. And like it's not always like happy mania. Sometimes like you're aggressively sad. And so and learning to not label that in like the same way, like I don't know, like because like I refuse to be labeled and I refuse to be put into a box because like, you know what, fuck you, I'll be an anarchist. If like all of these rules and stuff you're gonna give me, and all these ways to communicate this stuff are just gonna be built on lies and manipulations for really greedy fucking people, no different than feudalism when it comes down to it. Like, I just don't want to be a part of any of it, Like in the Crass song, like if you're tired of politics, you can be an anarchist, But for me, like it always fell back to being a part of this like as Crass put it, this make-believe secret society where like even like when I stopped talking about like, this is the way I believe about like how we can all operate on this different level of democracy and involvement and ownership, that we're really free to start looking inward and finding all of these ways that like the trauma of these kind of power relationships that we have to go through in this economy and in this political makeup, the traumas of that affect the way we're able to relate to each other.
Yeah.
And being told that there was like I was broken and there's something wrong with me, and like just having trouble relating to people because there's this like wall between me and like a normal person, it kind of was there something.
Well, it gets me thinking of like, so I did not get to go to a doctor for any mental health issues because I was probably just functional enough in my parents' account of everything that
Yeah.
which, I mean, looking back, I was functional enough.
Yeah.
I managed to work within the system. I was also very lucky in that, especially like the high school that I went to, like it was a very large high school, and thus I could find a group of people that latched onto me as friends. And then it was always funny, like later on in school, like I found that even some of the popular kids had been like come to my defense in times, like because they were like, nah, Gren's a cool dude, you don't need to fuck with him, like because I was younger, I was smaller, and I was quiet, so people thought, bully people thought they could just screw around with me. But I was then there were plenty of people and there was a few people that were my close friends that kept me from getting into fights when I was being backed into a corner by somebody, and I would, because they knew what was boiled up inside of me.
Wow, man, yeah. For me, like it was much different, especially because like it started off really young for me.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the thing that I was trying to boil down to was
oh, yeah.
that I wonder then, with you having those specific um, kind of delineations put upon you of oh, you are this, oh,
Oh,
you
yeah.
are bipolar, or you are this, and them trying to put a label on you, did that separate you out from others mentally?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, spiritually, mentally,
Hmm.
emotionally, um and like especially like if you look into any kind of like tribal tradition, like people like us would have been like separated from a young age and be like, you're not gonna go to school with the other kids. You're gonna go with the witch doctor.
Yeah.
You know? Um,
It's like you're good at arts and crafts, and you have weird feels, and you must be in touch with the spirit realm.
yeah, yeah. Um, and but so like I was going to doctors and therapists and psychiatrists and hospitals and poked and prodded and measured. Um, since I was like maybe it's like whenever like school started,
Hmm.
like after kindergarten especially, probably like maybe like second grade. Um, but so yeah, first it was like the ADHD, and then they would give me blood tests every year and do EKGs. So they would do like brain scans,
Hmm.
and make sure like everything's doing okay up there, which was like fucking weird as a kid, like going
Yeah.
and being a science experiment. And I will say it did give me a good emotional vocabulary, like my emotional intelligence and like why I do things. Like I've always had that.
Yeah.
And a lot of therapy is bullshit because of their ideology, believe it or not. Anyone who tried to ever act like my dad and like say like Richard Nixon was kind of okay, and that was like an instant like this ain't gonna work, bro. Um, but then as an adult, I found my method is like I just prefer like talking to females, um, and so just looking whose name I found really interesting in the list of like insurance people's like that sounds like a fun name. I'm gonna give her a call,
Yeah.
and it usually ended up being like a good call.
Mhm.
Um, so um, in any case, like yeah, it was like I didn't get a good school anytime I grew up. Like I grew up like my primary education was in New York, in Long Island, which was by Arizona standards a very good fucking education because I didn't learn anything for fucking 2 years when I came here. Literally, it's like yeah, I learned all this shit 2 years ago. Fuck, this is
Yeah,
gonna be boring.
that's kind of like when I moved from the Midwest to Texas.
Yeah. And but so the school I went to in Long Island didn't have a gifted program. So somehow they ended up putting me with the special kids once a week because I had like emotional and communication problems because well I just needed to know fucking everything and yeah I'm fucking weird. Let's just put that what it is. Um, and so I don't really remember any of that. I have these like weird, vague, like glimpse memories. Um, but so I did win a shit ton of field day medals with these kids. Anytime they're like, well, the special kids need one more. Anthony, you want to go play with the special kids? Like, yes, I will beat all of your asses at tug of war. Like, I will just hold on to my partner in the three-legged race and just pray for dear life and let him do all the work. Like, I was so proud of those medals that I got with the special kids. Um, oh God. I kind of organized I have, like, it was a weird sweep. Like, I don't know if, like, it was me being with the special kids and I just, like, was like, hey guys, don't you want to just beat the fuck out of these kids at all these games? But dude, we just had this clean sweep of, like, the field day that year. And I got so many blue medals. Yeah, and then when I moved to Arizona and the education was really shitty, I did find, like, one good therapist, because, like, I always gave psychiatrists way too much shit, because I never wanted to be on the pills. Like, I just like, hey, just teach me how to deal with fucking people, please.
Yeah.
Like, I need communication skills. I get that. I'm impatient. I think really fucking fast. Like, they measured my IQ as a kid at, like, 42 something, like, definitely, like, genius level. But again, didn't have a gifted program. So, and then also being, like, a working class kid, they were like, you don't fucking brag about being smart, and then getting to Arizona and just seeing just, like, the weird fucking dichotomy. And, like, again, like, I think we've talked about our stories of radicalization. When I moved to Arizona, two rich kids had killed, there was a rich kid murder in Ahwatukee. One rich kid killed another rich kid, put his body in a trash can, and they didn't find the body for, like, months and months and months. And, like, this kid lived in a mansion, and it was over a girl that they were both interested in. And it was fucking bizarre, like, just moving from, like, blighted Mastic, New York to, like, the promised land. Like, my dad got a good job. Like, no, everything's gonna be great out west. Mm-hmm. We get to this school, yeah, one rich kid killed another kid, and we're all really fucking bummed out about it. And I'm like, no, like, I was like, you guys, fuck all of you.
Yeah, like, that's funny, like, because I moved from Tennessee, which I only lived at for a year, to Texas, to the school that Diane Zamora was at. And looking back up, mid 1995, it was a big old thing because her and her boyfriend, like, conspired to kill some other, like, girl, yeah, it was a whole thing. So that was interesting to just move into, and just, like,
right,
this is the school that is known for that, and just like, what the hell?
Yeah. And, like, it was like, so I came to, like, into this shit, like, from blighted Mastic, New York, like, this part of Long Island. Remember, I think it was Amy Smart was the girl that was missing. It was, like, the early 90s, like, maybe, like, 92, 93 or something like that. This girl was abducted by either a family member, like an uncle, or a friend of the family, and, like, kept in, like, a secret, like, basement dungeon kind of thing. But yeah, it happened not too far from my house. I remember, like, being sick at home from school, and the search parties and the helicopters, and being really annoyed, like, why does this have to happen, like, when I'm fucking sick? Like, even as, like, a little kid, I was an old man. I was really into The Odd Couple as a kid, too. Two kids that I went to school with had both separately gotten hit by trains not long before I moved to Arizona. And mind you, I'm, like, 12, 13 at this point. And one girl was, like, tripping balls on acid. Like, 12, 13-year-old girl tripping balls on acid. What the fuck? And then another kid that I knew a little bit more closely, his bike got caught in a train tracks, and we would go all across these train tracks like fucking Lost Boys all the time. Like, I had, like, one of those, like, wild, like, outdoorsy, like, primary years kind of life in New York. And then come here to Rich Kid Murders, and then moved to Chandler immediately after that. And thank God I'm around poor people again. But then, and I definitely like glommed onto anarchism in that nihilistic 15-year-old kid way when I was 15. But I was also like really leaning into like the nihilism of the void and like being like heavily depressed and like being medicated, and like they were like, yeah, we're giving him as much as what was I on? Zoloft was the one they ended up like going with. We're giving him as much Zoloft as we legally can, and it's not really doing it, so just keep him on this for a couple of years and keep him going to therapy. And I don't remember any of my therapists growing up in like high school. High school's like very fuzzy.
Gee, I wonder what.
Yeah, right. But yeah, eventually I got off the Zoloft probably around like 17 or 18. I dosed down. I knew it, like, it takes like a month and a half to fucking kick in. So like I'm just gonna increasingly skip pills. Every other day, then every 3 days, kind of deal. And that's when I really started having nervous breakdowns, right, for college, and I had lost a job. I was working at a Dairy Queen. I was managing it. I was basically running the whole fucking place, and this guy, like, he defranchised because he wanted to make more money and have it his way because they didn't want him to do certain stuff. And I actually agreed with him about defranchising, but like he just cheaped out too much on the ice cream. We couldn't beat Dairy Queen on the ice cream. And he needed to sell the place, and well, he never told me. And machines started going missing. I'd be like, well, I'm just gonna clean behind the machine, like it'll be back eventually. And then like Christmas, fucking like the day after Christmas, I'm supposed to open up the store, and the locks are changed, and there's people in the store, and like they're like gutting it, and like, uh-oh, and this guy isn't answering his phone, and he owes me a check. So hello, more depression. And I had been doing good in college. I'd been doing really well, and this is just post 9/11, and I was taking all these political ideology classes like while 9/11 was happening. My ideologies teacher was actually in the reserve. He was like, so I'm hoping I can still be your teacher. We might see about that. It lasted through the semester. I don't know what happened to him afterwards. But yeah, then like semester after that was completely fucked for me once I lost that job. And he, like, again, like always searching for like my own way to fit into the universe. That's like, that just made sense for me because I had these mental health issues and this exposure to these ideas. I think like a lot of the songs and music I listened to had this like libertarian cultural influence. That was like anarchist but not in words before I like really got into punk rock.
Yeah.
Because so many like of the good arts are touched by this. Like, do you remember any of like the early like little like maybe like comic book or musical influences that like got you into these like sets of ideas?
Well, actually, I'm really glad you said comic book because that does get me thinking. Like, that was some of the biggest things. Was there was Tank Girl?
Oh,
there
right.
was things along those lines, and of course, a lot of the DC Vertigo stuff that came out. I came across for comic books. I came across a writer named Peter Milligan. And who was really strong and active during that period. Yeah. And he really liked to question things, but in not too heady of words. Like he just broke ideas down into really common speak.
Yeah.
And that I really connected with. It was one of a book he did called Egypt.
Yeah.
That I picked up because, it has a really cool cover. It's about Egypt. It's freaking weird. Okay, cool. I'll read this. And there's just one of the concepts in it is just that the main character is this shallow person that
Yeah.
is aware of his own failings.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this
Oh, yeah.
is something I can understand.
Oh, yeah. So, like, here's the thing about, like, I guess anarchism is this, like, self-reflection and, like, so, like, there's this hero leader worship where, like, because, like, a leader needs to be infallible in this sense of, like, a leader as someone who's a commander and not a servant. And I learned about servantile leadership much later in life and my discoveries, and I don't quite remember where. It was probably through improv comedy. Um, uh, but it was these ideas, and I think I found them through, like, it's sci-fi, and because a lot of sci-fi stuff, like, it may not be anarchist in, like, political words of, like, hi, I'm Philip K. Dick and I'm an anarchist. But, like, his books, like, really vibe with that whole frame of mind.
Yeah, that's another good point. Like, and coming from him, there was my big guy of William Gibson.
Oh.
The cyberpunk dude.
Oh, yeah. And for me, Tolkien. Because, like, when you actually, like, look at the critique and breakdown that is The Lord of the Rings, it's a breakdown and a critique of British industrialism and capitalism. You know, and it's what you would call like something like someone like and he didn't say it in words, but we would call him a minarchist, like in that kind of like feudal, like king that's not a king, like king in name only, kind of deal. But yeah, like those kind of critiques and really influenced like how I thought of myself in fitting into something. You know, and I am going to have to institute another break as an old man because I forgot to do old man things during the last one. Unless you have something.
No, I mean we've kind of gone long. Maybe you just keep on picking this up in future ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll have plenty. I think we can keep going for a while.
Yeah, this could be.
So
let's end this with another action note, a positive action note. Because I've been paying for a professional Zoom account and not using it, and we should really use it. I would like to organize and for the time being host until we can all get some group rules and stuff going. A mental health a group. Just where we can talk in this community about, like we do in our weekly updates, our personal updates, where we check in about, like, what's been going on and how we've been feeling about it, and get a chance to be a little bit more personal and private. Because it's really good to be able to talk about these things with people who share outlooks and experiences. So definitely, if you're interested in helping organize this, or something that you need, message us through the Facebooks or email buddingradicals at what's the new one? I just do the Gmail
Mail.
for now.
Proton Mail.
Proton. Budding Radicals at Proton Mail.
Yeah.
I have to actually set that up on my phone and see if we've been. Yeah, we got to use that.
There's a message that I got notified we have to check.
Okay. Messages we have to check on the Proton Mail. So yeah, email us at the Proton Mail. Budding Radicals at Proton Mail if you're interested in helping us organize coat drive and other needs for the houseless here in Phoenix. And Yeah, and if you're needing to be a part of a support group for any kind of mental health issue, um, I mean, definitely if you're in crisis, we need to all work together to put some resources together that people can see. Like, you definitely like need help now. Don't email us. But if you're just need a little bit of help right now and just need to talk about it, um, yeah, hit us up at the Proton Mail, and we'll start organizing that as a bi-weekly group on Thursdays, I'm thinking. So I might host one on Thanksgiving, because I'm not doing any family stuff because of COVID. Definitely also remind people, COVID is raging. Be fucking careful. Please be careful. We'd like to be able to do our really cool jobs once again sometime soon. So we're going to call that a show for today, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you again, always, for joining us. Tell your friends, and have any comments, leave some comments. We'll get back to you. Like, subscribe, live updates on the things that you do on the things, and share. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Same, not bat time. No, same time, but like not copyrighted. Which are my buttons? Oh, okay, bye. It's the K bye button. I gotta clean this thing up. All right. Okay, bye, guys.
Where'd Ren go? Did you say it goes back down?
I didn't hear.